Thank you very much for providing me the floor. It's a huge honor for me to address to this distinguished audience. I am a human rights lawyer, and I am applying the law to defend people and human dignity for many years. But now I found myself in a situation when the law doesn't work. Russian troops are deliberately shelling residential buildings, schools, churches, museums, and hospitals. They're attacking evacuation corridors. They're torturing people in filtration camps. They forcibly taking Ukrainian children to Russia. They ban Ukrainian language and culture. They're abducting, robbing, raping, and killing civilians in the occupied territories. And entire UN system of peace and security can't stop this. While this war turns people into the numbers, what we are literally doing, we are returning people their names. Because people are not numbers, and life of each person matters. When large-scale war started, we united our efforts with dozens of organizations from different regions. We built a national network of local documentators. We covered the whole country, including the occupied territories. And working together, we jointly documented more than 100,000 episodes of war crimes. And among these crimes, there are a lot of crimes against children. Let me illustrate it with one story, which is very important to highlight today, because this morning I was near Czech embassy and I saw a beautiful exhibition of brings children back. And when you probably will look to this exhibition, you will see the paintings of dragon. So this dragon was painted by a 10-year-old boy. His name Ilya. He's from Mariupol, and I would like to share his story. When Russians tried to siege the city, they didn't allow the International Committee of Red Cross to open green corridors and to evacuate civilians. Hence, Ilya and his mother, like thousands of other people in Mariupol, had to hide in the basement of their residential building from Russian shelling. They melted snow to have water, and they made fires to cook at least some food. But when supplies ran out, they were forced to go out, and suddenly they appeared in the center of Russian shelling. Ilya's mother was hit in her head, and the boy's legs were torn. With the last strength, his mother took her son to the front apartment. It was no medical assistance, because prior to this, Russians deliberately destroyed maternity hospital and entire medical infrastructure in the city. So in this front apartment, they just lay down on a couch and they hugged each other. They were lying like this for several hours. And this 10-year-old boy told to my colleague how his mother died and got frozen right in his arms. So when you will look to this dragon, which is on one photo near Czech embassy, please remember this story. Because we lost human dimension in all political process. Ironically, the Trump's year of peace negotiations with Russians became the deadliest year for Ukrainian civilians. According to UN, the numbers of people being injured and killed increased in 31% in comparison with the previous year. And this is a result of this loss of human dimension, because politicians discussed natural minerals, Russia's territorial claims, geopolitical interests, even Putin's vision of Ukrainian history, but they don't speak much about people, and it's not okay. We still have no idea what will be with dozens of thousands Ukrainian children separated with their families, illegally deported to Russia. Put in Russian re-education camps, told, you are not Ukrainian, you are Russian children, your families, your parents refuse from you, and you will be adopted by Russian families who will bring you up as Russians. What will be with dozens of thousands illegally detained Ukrainian civilians, their parents, men and women, as well as prisoners of the war, subjected to horrible torture and sexual abuse daily? I personally interviewed hundreds of them. They told me how they were beaten, raped, locked into wooden boxes, their fingers were cut, their nails were torn away, their nails were drilled, they were electrically shocked through their genitalia. One woman told me how her eye was dragged out with a spoon. Knowing these details, I have a clear understanding that part of these people have no chance to be alive till the end of these peace talks. What will be with people in occupation in general? Politicians discussed the question of occupied territories like they speak about empty spaces. But I'm sorry, these spaces are not empty. Millions of Ukrainians live there. They live in gray zone. They have no tools how to defend their rights, their freedom, their property, their life, their children, their beloved ones. And Russian occupation, it's not just changing one state flag to another. Russian occupation means enforced disappearances, torture, rape, denial of your identity, forcible adoption of your own children, filtration camps, and mass graves. This is Russian occupation. So we must return human dimension into all political process. Without human dimension, we would never find a path to sustainable peace. In March 2023, International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants against Russian President Vladimir Putin and his child commissioner Maria Lvova-Belova for the unlawful deportation of Ukrainian children. And while they qualified this action as a war crimes, it's something more than just war crimes. It's just a part of more the broader genocidal policy which Russian state imposed against Ukrainians. Putin openly says there is no Ukrainian nation, there is no Ukrainian language, there is no Ukrainian culture. For 12 years, we have been documenting how these words converted in horrible practice in occupied territories, where Russians physically exterminate active local people in communities, mayors, journalists, children writers, teachers, priests, environmentalists, how they banned Ukrainian language and culture, how they destroyed and robbed Ukrainian cultural heritage, how they forcibly recruited Ukrainian men to Russian army, and how they take their children. Let me illustrate it with the story of children writer Volodymyr Vakulenko. He wrote beautiful stories for Ukrainian children, and entire generation of Ukrainian children brought up on his daddy's book. For obvious reason, he wrote in Ukrainian language. During Russian occupation, he disappeared. I know his family. His family hoped to the last that he is alive, but like dozens of thousands of Ukrainian civilians are illegally kept in Russian captivity. But when Ukrainian army liberated Kharkiv region, we found mass grave in the forest near city Izum, with the dead bodies of civilians there, men and women with their hands tied under their back, with the horrible signs of torture. And in unmarked grave with the number 319, we found dead body of this children writer Volodymyr Vakulenko. When we speak about small children, like 3-year-old or 4 years old, just in some time, these children would forget their real names. and who their real parents. And even when their parents will be released, it will be very difficult for them to find their children. One story that can illustrate it, it's a story of Yevgen Mizhevy. He has 3 children. They lived in Mariupol, and when Russian occupied the city, they organized this forcible deportation of the people from Mariupol to Russia. But Yevgen Mizhevy didn't pass filtration. It's a legal procedure which tried to identify citizens of Ukraine who have pro-Ukrainian sympathy, which sounds surreal. It's not a crime for citizens of Ukraine to have pro-Ukrainian sympathy, but it's a crime for Russians. Ukrainian language. They know pretty well that their parents will be prosecuted if they will show any sign of dedication of Ukrainian identity. They study by Russian textbooks, and in Russian textbooks, Ukraine is not exist as a state. They also going through the total militarization, which is starting from the kindergarten. For example, their parents are forced to give their children on regular basis to so-called camps where Ukrainian children lining up live in barracks, wearing military uniform, and study how to use weapons. So Russia is literally preparing a new generation of Putin soldiers from this 1,600,000 Ukrainian children. And this is not just human rights problem, this is security problem, because in the age of 14, these children will receive Russian passports. In the age of 18, these children with Rose identity, being totally militarized, will be forcibly recruited to Russian army, which means that they will go to fight and to die in any country that Russia sent them to go to fight and to die. And what wasn't obvious for me being a human rights lawyer, but became more obvious when I started to speak with psychologists who provide rehabilitation care for children returned from deportation and occupation, it's that Russians raise up Ukrainian children in atmosphere of unquestionable obedience. So they literally installing authoritarian software in the mind of Ukrainian children to treat them that their will has no matter. They have always just to fulfill someone's orders. And this is something which our psychologists now are dealing with when they try to provide rehabilitation care to Ukrainian children who return from occupation or deportation. I remember that one of child trying to explain this feeling, and she mentioned, first, I created a wall for myself, and I tried to hide from this, behind this wall. But then I started to have a feeling that this wall became pressure for me, and I feel that I'm vanishing. I'm vanishing. So I would like to tell one more story, quite personal, because this story was telling by my friend. She's a Ukrainian journalist from one small city under Russian occupation. I will not mention the name of the city, you will understand why. In school which my friend graduated, like in all other schools under Russian occupation, children have to start their morning with a singing Russian national anthem. And one child refused to think and never think Russian national anthem. And one day, children asked this child, "But why are you not singing with others?" And the child responded, "Because I don't know the words." "But what's the problem?" told teacher. "Go home and learn by heart." And next day, this teacher put this child in the front of the whole class and obliged him to sing Russian national anthem. And instead of Russian national anthem, this child started to sing Ukrainian national anthem. And while the story is very personal, because it's provide me the clear understanding that if Ukrainian children under Russian occupation, being alone with the occupiers, find a strength and courage to continue their resistance, this means that we, being adults, we have no moral right to tell that we can do nothing. We must save them. And we're still fighting for the slightest chance for Ukrainian children to live without fear of violence and have a long-term perspective. And my colleagues who provide rehabilitation care of Ukrainian children who suffered from Russian war crimes or returned from deportation or occupation made a list of dreams of these children, and I want to read these dreams, what Ukrainian children in a war are dreaming about. "I dream of going to school. I had only online learning all these years. I dream of becoming a football player in the national team, so that my parents in heaven would be proud of me and say, 'This is our son.' I dream of inventing something that could save people's lives. I still don't know if I need to study chemistry for this, I don't like it, or maybe I can manage with artificial intelligence. I dream of becoming a world-famous singer. I loved singing together with my mom, and she always told me that I'm very talented. I dream of becoming the head of the UN. I will not allow anyone to start wars or offend others. I dream that my grandmother, my best friend Misha, and my dog would be alive. I dream about Lego, a new computer, and that Russia would stop sending missiles and drones at us. I dream of returning home when it will be possible." So I want to finish my speech with a very simple knowledge that childhood has an expiration date. This is an urgent issue. We must return human dimension into all political process. We must make the question of Ukrainian children in deportation, in occupation, under constant Russian bombardment as a priority. And we must make the price for war, for Putin, much higher than price for peace. And I'm not the smartest person in the room, I'm a human rights lawyer, but I know that governments know better what must be done to break the ability of Russian economy to feed this bloody war. The question is just about whether or not they found a bravery and historical responsibility to step beyond of the zone of comfort and to do it. But I want to finish on the note that despite of everything, the story of Ukraine and our struggle for freedom, it's a life-affirming story because these dramatic times raise hope. Because when freedom denied, it's become to powerfully break out through every concrete individuals. Because our future is not just unclear, our future is also not pre-written. This means that we still have a chance and responsibility to fight for future that we want for us and for our own children. And I'm here to say that we still have hope. We have just to define the word hope properly, because hope, it's not a confidence that everything will be fine. Hope is a deep understanding that all our efforts have a huge meaning. Thank you very much.